If there's one thing that philosophers, religious figures, world leaders, and even common people of all times can agree on, it's the power of a compelling story. My name is Logan Brady, and I love communicating and storytelling. I want to invite you to join me in reading deeper into modern storytelling to find the ancient truth and guidance that lies beneath. Welcome back to the Scrolling the Story podcast, episode 2. That's right, not just one, but now there's 2. Not 2 of me, there's still only 1 of me. We'd get a whole lot more work done if there was 2. But, episode 2, and I'm excited to talk about today's topic, one of my favorite movie series of recent, Denis Villeneuve's Dune. Few recent movies stand out as beloved in my mind and in the minds of others as Dune 1 and 2. Both have a gripping story, a star-studded cast, and a soundtrack by the GOAT, Hans Zimmer himself. For today's topic, we will be focused on the film Dune 2021. I will go ahead and say that I plan to return to this topic soon to talk about the sequel, Dune 2. See, in my mind, Dune 2 is essentially the perfect sequel. This may be controversial, but I consider it just as good, if not potentially better, than one of the greatest sequels of all time, The Empire Strikes Back, of course, being the sequel to Star Wars, the original, which, when it originally released, was just called Star Wars. Now there's like a trillion of them and a bunch of TV shows. I still haven't watched Andor. That's insane. Now hear me out. As many great moments as there are in the sequel, I think there's one smaller, quieter moment in the first movie that immediately came to my mind when I thought about using Dune for the series. This quieter and slower scene from the first movie really sets up one of the biggest relationships in the overall series, as well as a theme that comes back pretty heavy in the second movie. Some people complain about Dune 1. They say that the first movie is too slow, perhaps too dramatic. However, I contend this scene shows the purpose of the first film perfectly, and when placed into the context of the second movie, makes both films better. Without further ado, let's get into the scene. A great man doesn't seek to lead. He's called to it, and he answers. And if your answer is no, you'll still be the only thing I ever needed you to be. My son, Duke Leto Atreides. This scene between Duke Leto Atreides, played by Oscar Isaac, and his son Paul Atreides, played by Timothée Chalamet, comes early in the first movie. The family is still on their home planet of Caladan, and the Duke and his son are taking some time to walk through their ancestors' graveyard. See, in both the film and the book, Duke Leto is not a terrible father by any means, but he's not exactly winning awards. He has a bit of a strained relationship with his son and Paul's mother, the Lady Jessica, who is still only a concubine since he has never formally married her. He's often fearful of her background with the Bene Gesserit, a mysterious order of highly powerful women who influence the galaxy. It's always struck me how loving and practical Leto's advice is here to his son. Paul is worried about not living up to the expectations placed on him because he doesn't care about political aspirations or influencing those across the galaxy. He wants to be a young man and to live as such. Leto even takes a moment to confide that when he was in Paul's shoes, he was the same. He wanted to be a pilot and to serve at the level of a common soldier rather than to be a great and influential leader. The words that Leto just spoke to Paul are those of Leto's own father and Paul's grandfather. However, what Leto offers Paul, and it doesn't seem like he was offered by his father, is a choice. The ability and choice to choose to deny royalty, to deny the duty, yet to still be accepted by Leto as a son. See, Leto offers Paul a choice that I do not believe he was offered by his own father. One to deny royalty, to deny the duty, and yet to still be accepted by Leto as a son. Perhaps Leto would not have been accepted by his father had he chosen to not accept the throne. Ultimately, readers and viewers know that Leto doesn't live long enough to see Paul make this choice. In fact, Leto's death in a way makes Paul's choice for him. Paul goes on to wage a holy war in the name of a murdered father, and Millions, if not billions, die across the galaxy because of it. Now, Leto was wrongfully murdered and wrongfully betrayed by an emperor he trusted. But this idea, this shadow that Leto cast, is what drives Paul forward in making the decisions he makes, whether those are for the greater good or not. Whether they're for the greater good or not is up to interpretation. However, what is true is that they still have consequences, and these consequences result in deaths. I'd like to take a minute to talk about this idea of call and answering the call. See, deep down we all know that we're called to something. As believers, we are all called to serve the kingdom of Christ. Jesus makes this very clear in the wording of the Great Commission, "Go therefore and make disciples." However, I don't believe it's wrong to say that we aren't all called to lead, at least from positions that we usually attribute leadership to, whether that be positions of political power or positions of leading from the pulpit of local churches. Some people are uncomfortable leading this way and don't feel called to that, and I believe that's fine. However, it would be a mistake to assume that those who believe they are called to lead in this way are automatically great from it. To echo some words of leadership from my pastor, he often says, "You will never see a hospital sign that says a great leader was born here today." I think this is why I respect the leadership of Duke Leto Atreides so much. During his brief time in the film, you see him win over the hearts and minds of his men through service and through sacrifice. In today's scene in question, he even goes as far as to acknowledge that perhaps Paul doesn't feel called to lead. Perhaps he doesn't desire to, and he's truly okay with that. He's willing to still accept Paul as his own, as his son. See, Leto has played his role well, and he'll continue to play it until his death. And because of this, he is remembered fondly by the woman he loves, by his closest friends, by his own son, and even his enemies recognize his honor. As we seek to answer our calling, especially if it's to lead, hopefully the same can be said about us for years to come. I want to thank you for tuning in today. In this modern world, oversaturated with media and thing after thing to watch and consume, thank you for giving me a few moments of your time. If you notice something about this quote or the scene, or would like to see me elaborate on something further in the future, please take a moment to leave a comment below. Also, if you have a suggestion for a future episode, I'd love to hear it, and you can leave that in a comment below or reach out to me on Instagram at Brogan_lady. Thank you, and God bless. Onward and forward, faithfully.